Dr. Phil had never broken down in 10 years on the job, until this moment. The envelope trembled in Sarah's hands. Her husband Tom sat 3 feet away, close enough to touch but separated by 10 years of pain. The studio was so quiet you could hear the envelope's paper crinkling as her fingers tightened around it. Then Dr. Phil did something he'd never done before. He stopped the cameras, walked off the stage, and whispered something to his producer that would change everything. What happened in those next 60 seconds would become the most powerful moment in daytime television history. 48 hours earlier, Sarah Mitchell had walked into the Dr. Phil studios with one mission: to finally say goodbye to her marriage. She carried a folder thick with divorce papers, bank statements showing financial betrayal, and a letter she'd written to her 2 teenage daughters explaining why their family was ending. She wasn't there for reconciliation. She was there for closure. Tom Mitchell arrived separately, escorted by a production assistant who'd been briefed on the sensitivity. He looked older than his 53 years. The gambling addiction had taken more than money. It had taken his health, his confidence, and nearly his life. 3 months earlier, he'd stood on a bridge at 2 a.m. with his phone in his hand, one call away from ending it all. But what neither of them knew was that Dr. Phil had spent the previous night reading something that would change his entire approach to this episode. The pre-interview had been standard. Sarah told her story with the practiced composure of someone who told it 100 times. The discovered debts, the lies, the moment she found out their daughter's college fund was empty. Tom sat in a separate room, head in his hands, unable to articulate anything beyond, "I destroyed everything." Dr. Phil's team had seen hundreds of these cases. Addiction, betrayal, broken families. The formula was familiar. Confrontation, accountability, resources, hope. But when Dr. Phil read the daughter's letter that Sarah had brought, a letter Sarah herself hadn't fully read, everything changed. The letter was from Emma, their 16-year-old. It wasn't addressed to her mother or father. It was addressed to Dr. Phil himself. "Dr. Phil, my mom doesn't know I'm writing this. She thinks she's protecting us by leaving Dad. But what she doesn't know is that Dad saved my life last year when I tried to end mine. He's the only one who knew. He never told her because he didn't want her to blame herself for not seeing it. Please help them see what I see. They still love each other. They're just too broken to remember how." Dr. Phil sat alone in his office at midnight, reading those words over and over. By morning, he'd made a decision that would break every protocol in his production handbook. The taping began normally. Audience settled, cameras rolling, trademark Dr. Phil intensity. Sarah walked out first, carrying her folder like armor. Tom followed, maintaining the requested distance. They sat in separate chairs, the physical gap mirroring the emotional chasm. Dr. Phil started with his usual directness. "Sarah, you're here to end your marriage. Tell me why." Sarah's voice was steady, rehearsed. "Because trust, once broken this completely, can't be repaired. He lied for 3 years. He stole from our children's future. He chose gambling over his family every single day. I can forgive a lot, Dr. Phil, but I can't forgive someone who would take food out of their own children's mouths to feed a slot machine." The audience nodded. This was clear-cut. Addiction, betrayal, justified ending. Tom didn't defend himself. "She's right about everything. I did all of it. I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't deserve forgiveness." But then Dr. Phil did something unexpected. He turned to the audience and said, "Hold on. Stop the tape." The cameramen looked at each other, confused. In 10 years, Dr. Phil had never stopped a taping like this. The audience murmured. Sarah and Tom both looked startled. Dr. Phil stood up and walked off stage, not to his usual position, but directly to the production booth. Through the glass, the audience could see him having an intense conversation with his producers, gesturing, pointing at something on a monitor. Sarah leaned toward Tom slightly, the first acknowledgement of his presence. "What's happening?" Tom shook his head. "I don't know." Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. 2 minutes passed. The studio stayed frozen. Then Dr. Phil walked back out, but he wasn't alone. He was carrying something, a small envelope, sealed, with handwriting on the front. He also had his phone in his other hand, and his expression had completely changed. The television persona was gone. This was something raw, unscripted, real. Sarah, Tom. Dr. Phil sat down, not in his usual commanding position, but pulled his chair closer to theirs, forming an intimate triangle. I'm about to break several rules. My producers are furious with me right now. But I'm going to do something I've never done in 10 years of this show. He placed the envelope on the small table between them. Sarah's eyes fixed on the handwriting. She recognized it immediately, Emma's distinctive looping script. That's my daughter's. Sarah started. Your daughter sent this to me, Dr. Phil said quietly. She sent it directly to my personal production email, not through the normal channels. She asked me not to show it to you until this exact moment. Tom's face had gone white. Is Emma okay? Tom already knows what's in this letter, Dr. Phil said, his voice steady but soft. Don't you, Tom? The silence that followed was suffocating. Sarah's head snapped toward her husband. Tom's eyes filled with tears, and for the first time since they'd arrived, he looked directly at his wife. Tom? Sarah's voice cracked. What is he talking about? Dr. Phil leaned forward. Sarah, before I let you read this, I need to tell you something. In 10 years I have interviewed murderers, abusers, sociopaths. I've seen evil. I've seen irredeemable. But I've also learned that sometimes the people we judge most harshly are carrying burdens we can't see. Sometimes the person we think failed us the most is actually the person who saved us. Dr. Phil, you're scaring me, Sarah whispered. 17 months ago, Dr. Phil continued, Emma tried to take her own life. Pills in her bathroom in the middle of the night. Tom found her. He called 911. He rode in the ambulance. He stayed with her in the hospital for 4 days while she recovered. And he never told you. The sound Sarah made wasn't quite a gasp, wasn't quite a sob. It was the sound of a mother's heart breaking and her world shattering simultaneously. That's not, Tom, why didn't you? She couldn't form sentences. Tom's tears were flowing freely now. Because you were already carrying so much. The debt, my addiction, the stress. I didn't want you to think you'd miss something. Emma made me promise not to tell you. She said she couldn't handle you blaming yourself. She said it would kill you. And that's when the gambling got worse, isn't it, Tom? Dr. Phil's voice held no judgment, only understanding. Tom nodded, unable to speak. Dr. Phil turned to Sarah. After Emma's attempt, Tom's gambling spiraled. Not before. After. Because Tom didn't know how to process the trauma of nearly losing his daughter. He didn't have the tools. So he used the one broken coping mechanism he had. Sarah was shaking. Emma tried to, and I didn't know. How did I not know? Because Tom and Emma both loved you enough to protect you from it, Dr. Phil said. Even at great cost to themselves. He picked up the envelope and handed it to Sarah. Your daughter wants you to read this now. The entire studio held its breath as Sarah opened the envelope with trembling fingers. The letter was 3 pages, handwritten, tear-stained. Sarah read silently, her hands shaking so badly that Tom instinctively reached out to steady them, the first physical contact between them in months. She didn't pull away. As she read, her expression transformed. Horror, grief, understanding, and something else, something that looked almost like hope. When she reached the final page, her shoulders began to shake with sobs. Dr. Phil waited, giving her space. The audience was crying. Cameras captured every moment, but somehow it felt sacred, private despite being so public. Finally, Sarah looked up at Tom. You saved her life. I should have been there sooner. I should have seen. You saved our daughter's life. Sarah repeated, her voice stronger. And I was ready to leave you without even knowing. Sarah, Dr. Phil said gently, I need to tell you something else. Emma isn't the only one whose life Tom saved. He pulled out his phone, showed her the screen. It was a text message, timestamped 2:47 a.m., from 3 months ago. From Tom. To Dr. Phil's crisis hotline that he'd mentioned on a previous episode. I can't do this anymore. I've heard everyone. The bridge looks peaceful. I'm sorry. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Dr. Phil continued. Our crisis team called him. They stayed on the phone with him for 4 hours. And do you know what finally got him to step back from that bridge? What finally made him choose to live? Sarah shook her head, unable to speak. He asked our counselor to look up one thing on her computer. One photo. Your wedding photo. He said, I need to see her face one more time. I need to remember when she looked at me like I was worth something. And that's what saved him, Sarah. You saved him, even when you didn't know he needed saving. The studio erupted in tears. Audience members were openly sobbing. Even the camera operators were wiping their eyes. Sarah turned to Tom fully now, their knees touching, the physical distance collapsing. Why didn't you tell me any of this? Because I'm ashamed, Tom whispered. I'm ashamed that I failed you. I'm ashamed that I let addiction control me. I'm ashamed that I've been so weak. Weak? Sarah's voice broke. You saved our daughter's life. You fought to stay alive for us. That's not weakness, Tom. That's... She couldn't finish. Instead, she did something that no one, not Dr. Phil, not the producers, not Tom himself, expected. She reached into her folder, pulled out the divorce papers, and slowly, deliberately, tore them in half. Dr. Phil had to look away for a moment, collecting himself. When he looked back, his eyes were glistening. Sarah, Dr. Phil said softly, I need you to understand something. This doesn't fix everything. Tom still needs intensive treatment for his gambling addiction. You both need trauma counseling for what you've been through. Emma needs continued support. This moment, as beautiful as it is just the beginning of a very long, very hard road. I know, Sarah said, not looking away from Tom. But I'd rather walk a hard road with him than an easy road without him. She took Tom's hands in hers. I forgive you. Not because everything's okay. Not because the pain is gone. But because I finally understand that you've been fighting battles I couldn't see. And I want to fight them with you. Tom broke down completely, his head dropping to their joined hands, his shoulders shaking with the weight of relief and grief and hope all mixed together. Dr. Phil stood, giving them space, and addressed the camera directly. I want to talk to everyone watching at home. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean there are no consequences. It doesn't mean you have to stay in a harmful situation. But sometimes, not always, but sometimes, forgiveness means seeing the full picture. Seeing the battles people are fighting that you don't know about. Seeing the burdens they're carrying in silence. He turned back to Sarah and Tom, who were now holding each other, years of pain and separation crumbling between them. I've made arrangements, Dr. Phil said, his voice thick with emotion. Tom, you're going to an intensive residential treatment program starting tomorrow. Best facility in the country for gambling addiction and trauma. Fully covered. Sarah, you and Emma are going to start family therapy with Dr. Sophie from my team. Emma's going to continue her individual counseling. And in 3 months, when Tom completes the program, you're all going to start couples and family therapy together. Dr. Phil, we can't, the cost. Sarah started. It's handled, Dr. Phil said firmly. That's not your concern. Your only job now is to heal. All of you. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. The audience rose to their feet, applause thundering through the studio. But it wasn't the applause that mattered. It was the moment when Emma, who had been waiting backstage, unknown to her parents, walked out onto the stage. Sarah saw her first. Emma. Emma ran to her parents, and the three of them collapsed into each other, a tangle of arms and tears and healing. Dr. Phil stepped back, giving them their moment, and for the first time in his career, cameras caught him wiping tears from his own eyes. 6 months later, Dr. Phil received a letter. Inside was a photo, Sarah, Tom, and Emma at Emma's high school graduation. They were smiling, arms around each other. On the back, in Emma's handwriting, "Thank you for seeing what we couldn't see. We're not perfect, but we're together. And we're healing." Dr. Phil kept that photo in his office. On difficult days, he'd look at it and remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to judge. It's to understand. It's to see the battles people fight in silence. And it's to believe in redemption, even when it seems impossible. The envelope Sarah had torn open that day, Emma's letter, became a symbol in their family. They kept it in a frame, a reminder that the hardest truths, when finally spoken, have the power to heal. That forgiveness isn't weakness. That love, real love, means fighting for each other even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Dr. Phil had done thousands of shows. He'd confronted liars, challenged abusers, demanded accountability. But this moment, watching a broken family choose healing over hatred, choose understanding over anger, choose each other over the easy way out, this was why he did what he did. As he'd said to his producers after the taping, "We can give people resources. We can offer solutions. But we can't give them the courage to forgive or the strength to fight for their family. That has to come from them. And when it does, when they find that courage, that's not our victory. That's theirs. We're just honored to witness it." The episode aired 3 months later. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of emails from families in similar situations. Hundreds of people seeking help for addiction. Dozens of letters from people who said they'd been on their own bridges, their own breaking points, and this story had given them a reason to stay. One letter stood out. It was from a teenager in Ohio. "I watched your show with my dad. We haven't spoken in 2 years because of his drinking. After watching Sarah forgive Tom, I called my dad. We're starting therapy next week. You showed me that broken doesn't mean unfixable. Thank you." That's the legacy of that moment. Not just one family healed, but a ripple effect of healing spreading to families across the country. Proving that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose forgiveness. Choose understanding. Choose to see the battles people fight in silence. And choose to fight those battles together.